So just thinking about the last week, there is no doubt in my mind that the First Amendment is under threat, right? Um, the First Amendment to the Constitution says Congress shall make no law respecting on establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So this wasn't, as far as we can tell right now, a threat from our government per se, but it was a threat carried out and an action carried out from an individual who didn't like the ideas of an individual, and they didn't like the speech that they were hearing and used violence to stop that speech. So I find it interesting that in the wake of Jimmy Kimmel getting relieved of his post for his disturbing and incorrect comments this week, we have many people saying that this is a free speech issue. Isn't he working for a company that pays his salary? Do they have to keep him if he's causing problems to their customers? Are you someone who Are you somebody who wants Jimmy Kimmel to keep his job? So this is kind of an interesting conundrum, right? Because a lot of the same people that think that Jimmy Kimmel should keep his job were also okay with the president of the United States not having access to social media and not being able to talk to the citizens of the country. I mean, that's a huge difference, right? I mean, personally, I think that Jimmy Kimmel's ratings were probably down, so they probably wanted an excuse to get rid of him. And so that was just kind of a good timing thing for them. Um, so I don't know. I don't really know if it's a super. I don't know if it's a super big stance by ABC or if it's more just they were looking for a reason to let him go. So this was a good time. It's really interesting though, because I was thinking about what made Charlie so dangerous, and it was the fact that he had morals and he lived by those morals. He wasn't saying one thing and doing another in his private life, or at least as far as we can tell, it seemed like that way. He was very convicted in his stances. It didn't seem like he had skeletons in his closet. He talked about the shame that he had with different things in his past that, most Christians would realize that Jesus has saved them from. But he would talk about them. And so it's kind of like, well, what did you have on him? Because everything that, it seems like everything that he was convicted of, he would share openly, which is pretty incredible. And he was so good at explaining his convictions. And I actually just saw a debate that he had where I think one of the students that had talked to him was actually on gun control. He was willing to concede and a little bit of his point, and it's because the college student had made a really good point around saying, I forget exactly what the point even was, but it just showed Charlie's humility in in that discussion, because going into the discussion with that student, he had a very hard line on any type of oh, I remember what it was. It was the student had, after a probably 10-15 minute debate, the student had said, well, accidental gun deaths where somebody's weapon goes off accidentally is a big cause for it's a big cause for gun deaths. And so what if there was some sort of training that you had to go through in order to get your license, and you could get some sort of certificate saying that you passed the training, and that's how you could mitigate some of the accidental gun deaths. And Charlie mentioned, he just said to him, he's like, you know what, that's actually a pretty good point. Maybe we can find some middle ground there. So all that to say that it was a cool thing to see where he's willing to change his mind on things, and we should all be like that. If you're so ingrained in your thinking that you can't ever admit that maybe you're not right about everything, that's a brutal place to be. He was just he was so dedicated to his craft. You could tell from watching his work, from years ago when he would go to the campuses. I've been watching him for a long time. He would show up at campuses and there'd be a couple of people, and he dedicated his life to that and really worked on his craft. And it's just incredible how much better he got at debating and public speaking, and just over time it was awesome to watch. I do think what's going to be hardest to overcome going forward is who reads as much as he did. I mean, with the ability to debate and the ability to get in front of people fearlessly, I think that's going to be difficult to overcome, because he just had years of experience. So it's just going to take people putting in the work to get to where he was at. He was so, he challenged ideas and was so effective. It's crazy about, I could go down a rabbit hole about the people who are always saying conservatives are violent, and finding themselves on the same side with the people who are actually committing and attempting to commit murder. And then defend it by saying his words were violence. The definition of violence is the use of physical force to injure, abuse, damage, or destroy. So it's just so crazy to say that words are violent. To say somebody's ideas are violent, and that biblical values, which this country was founded on, that's violent. It can be divisive, but it's not. Words are not violent. Violence. I mean, there was never a call to action. Crazy. A call to action of violence. There was a call to action to act, to do what's right, but not towards violence. It's crazy, over the last week and a half, how many quotes, quote unquote quotes that have come out from Charlie that are either completely taken out of context or are just are made up. Like, it's not even an accurate quote. So if you have seen those and that's kind of swayed your opinion, I would just ask that you look for it. Look for the quote. Listen to the whole, it's probably a 15, 20, 30-minute conversation that, may be taken out of context, or it's completely a lie. So I would challenge you to try to find that conversation. It's wildly calloused to to take, somebody who's passed away and to do stuff like that, take their ideas and their, or take quotes from them and just completely distort them or make them up. Um so yeah, try to see if you can find those quotes and see what the context was, if it's even really a quote. I've been thinking about this, you know, over the last week. People who agree with Charlie, generally who would have the same stance as him. There's, a good amount of people that are being very vocal about um their thoughts. And then there's a bunch of people who are eerily quiet. I don't know I don't know why that is. I'm wondering, are you afraid that you're going to get shunned, or I mean, not that Charlie is he's not the Lord, he's not God, he's a man. But if you held the same positions as Charlie and you know that he was assassinated for holding those same views as you, why are you being quiet? Is it that you're afraid to be shunned by society? Um, are you afraid to lose followers or friends? Um, don't be. Now is the time to stand for what's right. There's definitely a shift going on in this country. And there's a shift right now for us from sorrow or sadness and anger to action. It's time to act on what we're seeing going on in this country, and I'm talking spiritually. I think that we're on the brink of something that I've never seen, where there's a spark right now. Act on that. Talk to people about it. Talk to people about what Jesus has done in your life. Charlie talked so often about Christ and his love for Jesus. Talk about that with your friends and your neighbors and your family. It's time to be bold and to speak out for what's right. I don't think I'm the only one seeing this shift. I know I'm not, because I'm on social media, so I see the other people who are kind of in the same belief system or bubble. I know that your social media gives you a lot of content that you want to see. That's just how the algorithm works, I believe. So, but that being said, it's there's thousands of people going out to different cities and towns um to pray and to sing. When do you see that? It's something that I haven't seen before, and I think that we need to be bold, and we need to share the gospel with those around us. The gospel means the good news. The good news is of Jesus Christ. The fact that he came, he lived a sinless life. He died, he was buried, and he rose again on the third day. He died to pay the penalty for our sin, just meaning sin, meaning not living up to God's standard. The last point that I really kind of wanted to make is, don't be distracted. I mean, if you're on social media like I am, don't be distracted by the people who are fighting over, like, whose was Charlie. It seems like there's a lot of people who knew him well, and they're kind of, there's some on the fringe, I believe, that it seems like they're trying to capitalize on this moment. I think what we need to focus on is focus on Jesus. I believe if from watching Charlie, I'd never met him, obviously, but from watching him, I think that what he would want the focus to be would be on Jesus. It's so clear that Christ needs to be the center of our lives, not Charlie, not your friends, but Christ. Who who will you serve? Are you going to serve Christ or um, serving yourself? I think those are really the only two options. I'll just read this to close it out in the book of Joshua, chapter 24. The people of Israel had allowed false gods, idols, into their midst, and Joshua challenged them to serve the Lord, and God had delivered them from their enemies. Joshua 24:14 says, "Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Then the people answered, "Far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For it is the Lord our God who brought us and our fathers up from the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, and who did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way that we went, and among all the peoples through whom we passed, and the Lord drove out before us all the peoples, the Amorites who lived in the land. Therefore we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God." It is time to act accordingly. Do not wait until it's too late. Act while we have this spark in this country right now, and the Lord will bless.